your phone calls, your text messages, your physical cards. We've got quite a collection of get well cards in the kitchen, which are great. The food that you've dropped off, the ways that you have reached out. There was zero doubt in our mind that we loved being here and that we felt so welcomed, and this has done nothing to dissuade that feeling. We are so grateful to be here, and so thank you for offering help and rides and everything else. The good news is that the break is not as bad as it could be. I met an Eeyore yesterday who told me, well, you know, it could always be worse. So it's good. So I'm in a sling. I'll be in a sling for a while. I go back to the doctor on Tuesday. It's a radial break, if that means anything. And it's, so, you know, not bad. And to simplify things, if the elbow does 15 things, I can do like 12 of them without any pain. The other ones hurt a lot, so we don't do that. And probably the biggest thing is that I can't put any weight in my right hand. So, but that'll come along, and we're good. And so your prayers and just being here has helped immensely. So thank you so much for that. It is great to be with you. We've got a Lenten study coming up on Saturday. I will be glad to be back with you. If you missed the announcement, we'll be covering chapters 2 and 3 this coming Saturday, and we're back at 9:30. So we had to move a time, we had to drop a day. Everything is back the way it ought to be. We've got our full complement of time. That's good. Kaya is on the road. You want to talk about that? Oh, come and tell us about that.
Saturday night at 7 o'clock, we would love to see some of you there. So you can, we'll have John with our PowerPoint there, so you can teach people that don't know us how to sing along. So we just love to see some of you. It is a free will offering for which they'll talk about there. So don't feel that's fine if you don't have to, if you don't want to, and come up for a good time. We would just love to see some familiar faces in the audience.
Great.
7 o'clock at the Baptist Church. It's on between Bishop's Corner and West Hartford Center on Main Street. It's on your left. It's really easy to find. It's on all the posters and it's in the bulletin.
It is. It absolutely is. It's awesome. It's good. Good. A couple other things you should know about. Youth group is in charge of hospitality during the weeks of Lent. So they are starting that. Go and eat and make sure that you let those young people know that you appreciate the hospitality. We've got more opportunities to eat. We're Methodists, for crying out loud, so we'll do that. Sue, can you bring up your sign? Come on down. There we go. All right. Thursday the 21st, right?
This Thursday at 6 p.m., potluck. I am not administering this, so you don't need to report to me what you plan to bring. So just bring what you love to make and what you love to share, and if it actually is just too stressful a day, just come on down anyway.
Yeah.
So we would love to just have a big get-together. There's no real purpose to this.
We're agendaless, right?
People seem to be kind of concerned about that. But there's no real reason. It's the first full day of spring, and we just chose that to have a celebration.
Thanks, Sue. You know, in our house, we believe that eating 3 times a day is a good thing. And so if you needed a reason, if you need a purpose to come down, get the 3rd meal, or however you want to figure that out. Okay, all right. Don't worry. There you go. That's your reason for being. There's lots of other stuff in here. I really want to get to worship. I'm excited to be here with you all. I'm excited that it's not last week and that it's this week, and it's good to see your faces. So let's stand up and let's greet each other, and let's get going.
Greetings.
Let's get into the sling of things.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Aw. So this morning we're going to talk about St. Patrick a little bit. Right? It is St. Patrick's Day, and St. Patrick did a couple of things, at least, known as the one who brought Christianity to the Celts and the island of Ireland. But of course, he's also known for driving all the snakes out of Ireland, right? It's part of his thing. And the fun part about telling that story about St. Patrick is that we get to talk about both, right? He both brought the love of God to people, told them about that, which is really good, and he got rid of this one thing in this place that many of us are afraid of. We don't really care for snakes, a lot of us. And so one of the things that we can talk about today on St. Patrick's Day is the fears that we have as people. And we've all got them, and we'll talk more about it in the sermon. But for kids especially, it's really good to hear that the same love of God can help us with the things that we're afraid of. And so whether it's spiders or whether it's snakes or whatever it is, that we can go and we can be in prayer about that and know that in all those places and all those times that we're scared, and sometimes as kids, we're really scared, that God is with us in those moments. And so I think that's a really good thing for us all to remember. And it just so happens that that's perfect because we get to talk about snakes on the same day, which is good. Works well. Certainly for my brother-in-law, it would work well. So absolutely, yeah. There we go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The reading this morning is Psalm 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When evildoers assail me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and foes, they shall stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. One thing I ask of the Lord, that will I seek after, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. For he will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. Now my head is lifted up above my enemies all around me, and I will offer in his tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me. Come, my heart says, seek his face. Your face, Lord, do I seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger, you who have been my help. Do not cast me off. Do not forsake me, O God of my salvation. If my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will take me up. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. Do not give me up to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they are breathing out violence. I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord.
Thanks, Linda. The gospel reading this morning is from the 13th chapter of Luke, verses 31 to 35. At that very hour, some Pharisees came and said to him, "Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you." Jesus said to them, "You go and tell that fox for me. Listen, I am casting out demons and performing cures today and tomorrow, and on the third day I finish my work. Yet today, tomorrow, and the next day I must be on my way, because it is impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left to you. And I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, 'Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.'" Here ends the reading. I spent 2 years in between college and seminary working. Worked for Barnes & Noble, 2 different stores, did some different stuff, did the corporate thing, and had a pretty good time doing it, but I knew it wasn't going to be for me forever. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And so my mother helpfully suggested that perhaps a mission trip would clarify my thinking about some things. I was kind of very uncommittedly in the process towards ordained ministry and, you know, just working and kind of going through the motions like a lot of us do, Monday through Friday, doing my thing. And so I thought this was a pretty good idea. I'd never really been on a good mission trip, certainly nothing to speak of, not a good story to tell you. And so I began to kind of look into this. And I've kind of, you know, it's in the dim mists of time now. I've kind of forgotten how I came across this guy who was putting together a trip to go to Southeast Asia. I said, oh, wow, that'd be great, man. Let's do that. Let's go there. And so I began to write letters and, you know, collect funding. And so we went in August of 2005. We went to Southeast Asia. We went to Cambodia and Laos and Thailand. I spent 2 weeks in Cambodia, 3 days in Laos, and a few days in Bangkok. And as I've told this story through the years, of course, generationally, there are people who go, you know, I spent a lot more time than that in that part of the world. So, you know, people that my parents grew up with and things like that. And I will admit that that was part of the allure, to go to this place that had such a hold on my parents' generation and as they were growing up, and to see what that place looked like. And it was an amazing trip. But the part of the trip that I want to tell you about doesn't deal with the churches that we visited or any of that other stuff, which is why we were there. It deals with an off day that we had and an opportunity to go and explore this huge temple complex that's there. We went to Angkor Wat, which is one of the largest temple complexes anywhere in the world, and it stands up to the billing. You know, sometimes you get places and you go, really, that's it? That's not impressive, you know? You saw all the good pictures in the travel guide. This place is amazing. And so we were there, and this was not really a guided tour kind of place, and so I found myself wandering through this huge temple complex with these enormous stone blocks and all this carving, and listening to people talking who were there from all around the world, and you know, just kind of enjoying for a moment being completely out of my element, being, you know, hot and sweaty and uncomfortable and just blown away by what I was seeing. And as I made my way through the temple complex, when you get to the middle of the temple, there is a large tower that sits in the middle. There's 5 towers. There's one on each corner, and then there's this one in the middle. And you can climb up to the top of it. And this would be, if, you know, many, many years ago, if you were making a pilgrimage, this would be where you would kind of end that pilgrimage. Now, the thing I need to tell you is that the fact that I was there in August, it doesn't really matter. And if you've ever been to that part of the world for any reason, you know that it's just kind of hot and consistently warm and humid in a way that we really can't understand at all times of the year. So the fact that it was August doesn't really matter, but suffice it to say, it was hot that day. And the stone steps leading up to the center of this place had no guardrail on it, had no railing, and in fact, if you've spent any time around steps, the rise over run of this was such that you could not walk up it. Not possible. I have very long legs. You can't walk up it. You have to crawl to do it. So it's really more almost like a ladder. And of course, the stones are hot, and there's sand on the stones, and it's not comfortable. And if you are afraid of heights, as I have been and continue to be from time to time, you're just kind of out hanging in the middle of nowhere, right? You're up above the other buildings, and it is quite an experience. So you do well to kind of put all that stuff out of your head. And I remember climbing up these blocks, scrambling up this stuff, trying not to burn my fingers on the stones, and trying to avoid the sand that made everything kind of slippery. And as you get up to the top, the first thing that you see at the very top of this, there is a very large, life-size Buddha statue that's up there. And the first thing you see is you kind of come up over this lip. You see his feet, you see the legs, you see all the way up. And when you get up to the top of this, what you see is the Buddha standing there with both hands. You'll have to use your imagination here. Both hands out like this, which is the symbol for fear not. Fear not. How appropriate. How appropriate to have done this thing which took me completely out of my comfort zone, right? Which was uncomfortable, which was mildly difficult, like maybe a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10, not like really strenuous, but just kind of tough. And to get up there and for that to be what you are there to see. And I thought about all the people that had come through this temple complex over hundreds and hundreds of years who had come to this place and to see that. Fear not. Be not afraid. And I thought of all of the things that we had experienced on that trip. And of course, this is a country that was torn apart by civil war, and there were things that I saw and stories that I heard from people at the churches that we visited that just would make the hair stand up on the back of your neck, and that hopefully, thankfully, most of us have no idea about on a personal level. And to be confronted by these two things was just staggering. And it's one of those experiences that has stuck with me, and that trip has informed why I do what I do and how I do what I do, and the ability to realize how connected we are. And one of the things that connects us, friends, that is unfortunate is the stuff that we're afraid of. We spend so much of our lives afraid of things. And so I was thinking about that story. I've been doing a lot of thinking this week. I've been doing a lot of sitting. I've been letting myself be taken care of more or less willingly. When you can't use your right hand, there's a lot you can't do. You noticed I can't shave, so that's not a possibility. And, I've made it through most of The Crown this week. That's been good. It was on my list. I've read a couple of books. But I've been thinking a lot. And I've been looking at the world that we live in. And I've been thinking about all of these things, right? All of these things that I'm afraid of. The stuff that causes me fear and anxiety. Normal stuff, right? Is my arm going to work right again? Really basic. I'm being really selfish here. I'm worried about that, right? We'll see. Probably, yeah, it'll work out okay. But, there are those moments where you worry about that. New Zealand, right? Horrendous. I talked to people this week also, who fly for a living. They travel constantly, and for the first time, they're really worried about the plane that they're going to get on. Is the plane that they're going to get on, is it going to stay in the air? What's going on with that? You've got to call the ticketing agent and go, what kind of plane are you going to put me on? They've never asked these questions. Fear, right? Crazy weather, fear. Our country, fear. The world, fear. I went to a meeting yesterday. I spent all day with a whole bunch of United Methodists. Fear. And yet, in so many ways, the world that we live in, you and me, that we raise kids in, that we are enjoying the journey together, in so many ways, this world is so much safer than it's been. Safer than when I was a kid. Safer than when you were a kid. I came across this great thing recently. It was a picture. Many of you know I'm a car guy. It was a picture of a 1955 Chevy, right? You picture it? And what it did is it outlined the 15 different ways that car could kill you in an accident. I didn't say it was a happy thing, right? And all of these things that it outlined are stuff that you and I don't have to worry about when we get into our cars today, because those cars don't do that anymore, right? My point is just to say that in so many ways, even the stuff we don't think about, most of us are not terrified to get behind the wheel of our car. We just kind of get in and do it. I'm looking forward to when I can do it again. But we live in fear. We live in fear of sickness. We live in fear for our children. We live in fear of opioid addictions that people have, all kinds of stuff. And so I've been thinking about that this week, and this story about this experience that I had came back to me. Fear not. Now, one of the things that's also really interesting is that both of the scriptures that we've heard this morning, Psalm 27 that Linda read for us, and the gospel this morning, are both about those things. And Psalm 27 specifically says, basically, my Lord is for me. What do I have to be afraid of? God will take me in, will lift me up, will anoint me, will hold me close, will protect me and take care of me. How wonderful. How incredible to think about a faith that would allow you to see your life like that, being drawn close to God in those moments of fear and anxiety. And then one of my favorite stories. There's a lot of good ones, but if you like some human Jesus, this is a really good one. Jesus is doing his thing. He's healing and he's teaching and he's preaching. And the Pharisees of all people, who are not known for really loving Jesus, human, divine, or otherwise, come to him and say, "Thought you should know, Herod is not happy with you." Herod the king. Herod, you know, the guy that took off John the Baptist's head, right? Like, be careful. He wants you gone. And Jesus' response is amazing. These are moments where I wish that I could read it in the original language, because what Jesus says is, you go and tell that fox that I'll be here for 3 days, teaching and preaching and healing. Jesus looks at them, and in this moment where he is being warned about bodily harm, physical harm, he wants you gone, Jesus. Stuff that most of us don't worry about, right? It's not actually on our fear list. Thank the Lord. Jesus looks at them and says, "Oh yeah? I'll be right here. I'm going to be right here doing my thing, because these people, they need my help. So I'm doing important stuff today. And if he wants to find me, he can come and find me. And then I'll be gone." I want you to think for a minute. I want you to think about yourself for a moment. I want you to think about the stuff that you are afraid of, the stuff that keeps you up at night. We all have it. And I want you to think about Jesus for a moment. Jesus, who has been warned in this moment that his life is physically in danger. Herod can do anything he wants. There is no one to stop him. There is no recourse. How easy would it have been for Jesus to say, "Oh, that's not good. Thanks for the heads up. I'm going to take off. This whole ministry thing, maybe not such a good idea. Didn't really mean to ruffle feathers. Clearly, I've stepped on some toes here, so I'm just going to take my 12 buddies and we're going to go." He doesn't do it. He turns it right around. "Yeah? Really? I'll be right here. I've got work to do." And see, the thing about it is, friends, that the problem with the fears that we have, whatever they are, they keep us from doing so much. They keep us locked in that place where we cannot function as fully as we ought to, as we've been created to. And some of that is for good reason. You've heard me say, we are not the biggest or the strongest. We don't have the biggest teeth. There is stuff in our evolution that makes us fearful of things, and some stuff is okay. But sometimes, particularly when we have an opportunity to extend grace or love or understanding to those who need it, our fear keeps us from doing it. I had an experience some years ago. One of my meditative times was taking bottles and cans back to recycle. I really liked to do this. I would collect them and you'd use that money for fun stuff. We had used some of that to fund our wedding. We'd use some of that just for fun stuff. Occasionally, if you save enough, you can go out for like a pizza. It's pretty good. It's kind of nice to turn like nasty old bottles and stuff into pizza. It's good. It's a trick. And so I was standing at the bottle return machines, just feeding my cans in, and you get into that like flow where you're just like, it's like perfect. It's amazing kind of thing. Everything's going in right. You figured out how to like line it up, and you just got that nice flow, right? You're just kind of doing your thing. And this guy starts talking to me. Just the two of us. in like the stinky, sticky bottle return area. And I'm just like, I'm in my flow. I'm just having a good time, just kind of doing my thing, you know, thinking about pizza or whatever. And he is talking my ear off. And I wanted no part of it. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't care what he was talking about. Didn't make any difference. I just wanted my moment. I wanted my meditation time. I wanted my pizza. I wanted my flow. I wanted to be really excited that all those seltzer cans were going in just perfect. Stupid. We all do it. And I have wondered from that moment onward, from time to time, what I missed out on. It's a cautionary tale about seltzer cans. And the thing about it is, friends, that so often when we have the opportunity to have those interactions, to talk about who we are and whose we are, to talk about what it means to be a United Methodist, to talk about how we're people of grace and love and understanding, to talk about how we believe that there is hope in the world, how we believe that peace can triumph over evil, how we believe in a God that loves us, no matter who we are or how we've been or what we've done. When our fear keeps us from telling people about that, we have missed an opportunity. And so often our fears are about not being understood, about being made fun of, about being teased, about being told how naive we are, about hearing from somebody that they're spiritual but not religious. And so we don't do it. We don't do it, and we miss that moment. And so I want to encourage you, and I want to encourage me, right? Because I was the guy at the bottle return machine. To have a little less fear in our lives. To know that there is a God that loves me and loves you for who you are. And to not be so afraid to interact with people on a personal level. To put yourself out there a little bit. To say, you know, I got things to do. I got teaching and preaching and healing to do, and I'm going to be right here because people need me. And forget the consequences. And so today, remember to fear not, for God is with you. Amen. invite you into this time of prayer. Spend some time thinking about the fears that you have. Fears are real, friends. They're real things. We should take them seriously, but we should also know that God journeys with us through all of those times and all of those spaces, and that even in those moments, we are never alone. Descendants of God, we are invited to look into the night sky to be reminded of the promises of God. Among those lights are the lights of justice for all people. There is none among us on earth that is not counted as God's children. There's a star for me, and there's a star for each of you. There are stars for the colonized, and there are stars for the colonizers themselves. There are lights shining in the heavens for every person who suffers at the hand of another. And there are lights in that same heaven for the ones who would strike and maim and injure. There are stars for our descendants, for all alive today and for the generations to come. And each generation has shined in its own brilliant way. Loving God, heaven is full of stars, and earth is full of your descendants longing to be seen and known and loved and healed and fulfilled. And so we come before you with the desire to shine. We are aware that at times we are part of a mosaic of both beauty and calamity. But we long for your healing power to make us bright. Shine into our lives today, Holy God. Shine into our hearts and minds and help us to be alive in your love and mercy. Shine into our families and communities and strengthen our ties and bonds. And help us to shine your realm into being, to create heaven here on earth. Amen. Would you join me in the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Before I ask you to stand for the benediction, I just want to ask a favor of you. As I continue to heal, if you need me, if you have a question for me, if there's something I need to know about, if you need a prayer, if you just want to know what the weather looks like on Meadowbrook, I would ask you to give me a call or send me a text message. It is a lot easier to do right now for me than responding to an email. There are some things that don't work well, not an email, and I get that, and I will get it back to you as soon as possible. I've always tried to turn that around in like 24 hours, and that's been a little tough. So if you need me, reach out to me that way just for a little while so that we can get together on whatever we need to do. Okay? Thank you. And now I'm going to invite you to stand as you are able and receive the benediction this morning. Let us continue this Lenten journey by looking up and all around. God is offering us stars of promise and wings of protection, and God journeys with us, and we are blessed. We are gathered and sent. Fear not. Go in peace. Amen.